Okay, here we go. That was pretty fast. So we're on 13B, and what we're going to be dealing with is sexual orientation. And the argument is that there's some biological, I forgot to put this stupid thing on my whiteboard. Here we go. Here we go. Maybe not. Here we go. There we go. Okay, what I want to do is we're talking about sexual orientation. Oops. And we're talking about some biological explanations. And again, these don't, I mean, it's not like all these things come together, okay? But in fact, there's some inconsistency. So we don't know for sure. And, and there's lots of stuff. We know a lot about guys. We don't know so much about girls, okay? About, gay behavior in girls. And I will tell you, there's some evidence to suggest, I mean, I hear some stuff that suggests that maybe girls is more learned. And I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you hear a lot about women in an abusive relationship will then get a girlfriend, and they just get turned off from guys. And so I don't know if that's learned. I don't know. We just don't know that much about girls. We know a lot more about guys. Guys have been studied more than girls have. And maybe it's because, I don't know, maybe homosexuality and I mean, women's roles, I don't know where I'm going with this. Let me just give you an example. If a girl walks down the hallway at East Central holding the hands of another girl, we don't think anything about it. Girls do that stuff. Girls talk and interact and, have sleepovers even when they're older, okay? But if guys walk down the hall, it ain't too good. People look at that, and maybe they shouldn't. I'm an old guy with old ways. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't know. I'm just saying it. We're becoming more accepting, and I think that's good because I really believe it's biological. Okay, but I do think it raised some eyebrows if two guys walk down the hall holding hands. And I'm laughing. I shouldn't laugh. That's not nice. I'm sorry. I'm moving along here. Okay, so we've got sexual orientation. And I want to tell you about three theories, okay? One of the theories has to do with imprinting, sexual imprinting. Sexual imprinting. Okay, and here's the idea behind sexual imprinting. Biologists have determined a way to consistently make gay rats, okay? And what they have discovered is that in the fetal development of a male, a little baby boy rat, this doesn't work for girls, in the fetal development in some stage, okay, if the mama rat imprints the little boy with a small amount of testosterone, remember females have testosterone too, rats included, if they imprint their baby boy in utero, now this is in utero, with a small amount of testosterone, then he's born and he likes little girl rats, okay? But if for some reason they deny him the testosterone, and they do this chemically, I think, they deny him the testosterone, he comes out liking little boys. It's a strange thing. And they can do this 100% with 100% accuracy. I mean, they do this over and over again. I mean, they figured out how to do it, okay? Now, what you're thinking is, well, that's rats, and people are people, and we're different. And there's no evidence to suggest that, and that's true. And so we really don't know. But there is some anecdotal evidence. Now, to explain this, I got to tell you something. Scientists know that epinephrine, which is adrenaline, epinephrine washes out the effects of testosterone, all right? And so we know that. We also know that there were a bunch of German men born from like 1943 to 1945 that are disproportionately gay. Gays are about 2 to 3% of the population, okay? And they are at a higher percentage in the German population of the guys who were born during that period. Well, think about what was going on in Germany during that time. That was World War II, right? And let's say you're a little Fraulein and you're with child, okay? And there you are, and the Russians are coming from the east, and the Allies are coming from the west. I mean, we were all allies. The Americans were coming, and French were coming from the west, and English. And you're being bombed in the day by the Americans and bombed at night by the British. I mean, your epinephrine levels, your adrenaline levels are going to be elevated. And what we've found is that there's a higher percentage of boys, little boys, German boys born who were gay during that poop, were in utero during that period. It's anecdotal evidence. It's not done in experimental fashion, but it lends some credibility to this idea. Okay, that's one. One-third sexual imprinting. Okay, the second one is the hypothalamus. Whoops, I was looking at the keyboard so I wouldn't mistype it. I mistyped it. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is a gland at the base of the brain which regulates sexual behavior, among some other things. And some research has indicated that the hypothalami of gay guys is significantly smaller than the hypothalami of heterosexual guys. Okay, and it's more on the size of women. Okay, the hypothalami of women. And the study was done by a guy named McVeigh, and what he did is that he studied 13 gay guys, and they did an autopsy. They died, and they did an autopsy, and they cut their heads open and looked at the hypothalamus in each of these 13 guys, found that it was significantly smaller. Okay, now the caveat is that each one of these guys, to do an autopsy, you're dead, right? Each one of these guys had died of AIDS. It could be that AIDS is an independent variable influencing the size of your hypothalamus. I don't know. But that lends some other support. It's interesting that they all had, smaller hypothalami. Okay, so the third theory, has to do with twin research. Oops. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about this because this research design helps us sort out the effects of environment and heredity, and I really want to spend some time on this. One of the questions that social scientists always are asking themselves is this due to environment or is it due to heredity? Is it biological or is it learned? Those are the basic questions. So anything like IQ, do you inherit IQ? Are you smart because your folks are smart, or are you smart because you learn to be smart? Okay? Athleticism. Are you a good athlete because your folks are good athletes? It's in your genes, or do you learn to be a good athlete? Are you a good musician because there's some biological predisposition, or is it learned? Do you get cancer because there's a biological predisposition, or is it environmental? So this is a really important thing to look at, okay? This question of nature versus nurture, biology versus learning, same question, okay? Now, the question can be answered, okay, by doing twin research. So let's talk a little bit about the methodology of doing twin research and what it means, okay? Now, you know and I know that there are two kinds of twins, right? There's fraternal twins, and if I can spell it, or type it, fraternal, and there are identical. Fraternal and identical twins. Okay. Now, you know that fraternal twins are no more similar or dissimilar than siblings, right? So they can be different sexes, different heights, different IQs, because while they come from the same gene pool, they're not identical, okay? Identical twins are identical. They are genetically matched up. Now you say, well, I know some identical twins and they're a little different. Yeah, I know. And that's that's called phenotypic phenomenon. Phenotype, or TPIC, to say, make the HD, but phenotype. And what we mean by phenotype is the interaction of the environment with genetics. So let me give you an example. A long time ago, when we first got soccer at East Central, had soccer girls on campus, there was a set of identical twins that were soccer girl players, and one, I couldn't tell the difference. I'd see them both, and apart, I couldn't tell any difference, and even together, I couldn't. They looked identical to me. But friends said that one girl was slightly taller, okay, and maybe a little heftier build. Well, maybe when she was growing up, she liked peanut butter, liked protein, okay, and the other one didn't like meat. And so she got a better diet, and consequently, she was a little taller. That's an example of phenotype, the interaction of the environment with biology. But identical twins are identical, okay? Now, to make this clear, I'm going to use the biological terms, because when I do that, it really makes sense, okay? So when we talk about identical twins, let me type that again. Identical equals monozygotic. They're called, biologists call them, identical twins call them monozygotic. And this is a very apt description, because you've got a zygote, a little, fertilized ovum. You've got an egg, sperm, okay, it becomes a person. And that one fertilized ovum, for some reason, and I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows, but it splits to form two identical people. I mean, it's the same genetic material, right? And in fraternal twins are called good night. That's dizygotic. I can't spell it at all now. No, it's not a Y, it's an I. There, dizygotic. I think that's right. Good night. Dizygotic is you've got two ovums, and the woman releases two eggs instead of one. Normally it's one, right? But for some reason, two eggs come down and there's a jillion sperm, so they both get fertilized, okay? What are they? Fraternal twins, okay? They can, as I say, it can be different genders. You can have a boy and a girl. You can have a tall and a short one. You can have different personality types, all this kind of stuff. Okay. Well, how does this relate to finding out about the difference between identical and fraternal, to find out the relative impact of environment versus heredity? And here's how you do it. If you look at identical twins reared apart, so they're identical genetically, but they're in different environments. If they are different, it's got to be due to the environment, right? But if they're the same, it's got to be due to genetics. So that's how you figure it out. You look at identical twins reared apart. Now, unfortunately, from a social science perspective, but fortunately from a humanistic perspective, we don't have any of these cases, because it would involve, first of all, identical twins are rare, all right? And then they would have to be, their family life would have to be disrupted so that they'd be reared in different environments. And so the parents would have to be killed or divorced or something, okay, for them to be reared in different environments. So the sample size is really, really small, okay? But that's the best way to do it, all right? Well, what we have as kind of a compromise, okay, rather than looking at identical twins reared apart, Sweden collects data on twins, both mono and dizygotic, okay? And what we're going to do is not look at identical twins reared apart, but just compare identical with fraternal twins. And and let me tell you something else. I teach this class talking about identical twins. Identical twins have their IQs are pretty similar, okay? They're more likely to die at about the same time than fraternal twins. They're more likely to die of the same thing than fraternal twins. There's genetics is operating on us, okay? There's no question. Well, instead of looking at identical twins reared apart, what we're going to do is compare identical with fraternal twins, okay? And when they do that, here's what they found. If one fraternal, and this is only guys, they didn't look at girls. Again, there's just a bias in the research. If you look at a guy and he's gay, and he's a fraternal twin, and he's an identical twin, okay? So for identical twins, (95% of the time his sibling is gay. So if an identical twin is gay, 95% of the time the sibling is gay, which argues for, that's a pretty strong argument for a genetic component, right? in and of itself. But then when you look at fraternal, it's only about 7% of the time. So fraternal twins, it's not predictive at all. Identical twins, it's highly predictive. If one identical twin is gay, you can bet the bank that his brother's gay. Okay, for fraternal twins, you don't know. It's a shot in the dark. Okay, a little better than chance, because remember, 2 to 3% of the population is gay. So here you got 7%. It's a little higher, but not like identical twins. Okay, all right. The last thing I want to say about this is, I want to point out some inconsistencies. Okay, if you look at the imprinting thesis, okay, where the little baby boy in utero is imprinted at there's a certain window when he's got to be imprinted with his mother's testosterone. If he comes out gay, if he's imprinted, he likes girls. If he's not, he likes boys. That's inconsistent with this twin thing, because you got to think, if the little twin, I mean, you'd think there'd be no difference between identical and fraternal twins if imprinting is working, right? I mean, because if you're imprinting one, you're going to imprint the other. They're both there together, right? They're in utero together. So that's an inconsistency, and I don't know how to explain that. And all I can tell you is that we don't know all the facts. We don't know for sure, you know, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest a biological interpretation. So the way I want to end this is just to say this: whether it's biological or whether it's choice, okay, it's their choice. You know, if they want to do it, let them do it. It's their choice. You know, and I don't see why we got to be so judgmental. But the good news is we're becoming less judgmental about that. So that's good. I like that. Okay, I think, let me just check real quick. I think that's it. So we've got, yep, that's it. We're good to go. So that was chapter 13, A and B. And what we're going to do next is 14, which is, I think, expedience. Okay, adios.